So Mark, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of manufacturing. But before we go into the future, can you share a little bit about your own backgrounds? Where did you grow up?
Sure, Nick, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. I grew up in the big city of Johannesburg, Parkhurst, close to what used to be the inner city. Schooled in Pretoria, and as early as that, decided I'd rather spend time. Even back then, in the early 80s, I thought the city was getting too big, and I chose to spend more time in the country. So I spent a lot more time in Limpopo, up in Zanin, and so I grew up between Johannesburg and Limpopo. Those are the best years that formed where we are today.
Yeah, and Mark, what was your dream career when you grew up?
Well, I mean, it was exactly that. My dream career was always agriculture and always farming. You know, I just, as I said, you know, back in the 80s, I looked around that city. I remember being at the intersection of Empire Road and Jan Smuts, close to where Parktown Boys is. Crossing the intersection, looking at the traffic and thinking, wow, this is unsustainable. It can't get busier than this. But I'm certainly not going to spend the rest of my life in the city working through traffic. You know, had I known then what we see now, I would never have imagined it would grow to where it is now. But yeah, so as long ago as that, my dream career was certainly agriculture.
And who inspired you in your early days?
Nick, well, everybody, you know, I think everyone has those heroes in their life. And I think the greatest heroes are those unsung people that do what comes naturally. And I can honestly say that was teachers and at school and housemasters and, you know, individuals and colleagues that were with me that came from farming areas, that were at boarding school with me. I always admired the guys that came from the country districts, and going back on holidays back home with them to farms, I felt particularly inspiring, and it was a decision. I just felt, you know, these are people who lived under big sky and big space that worked with a lot of other people, but I just really felt that farmers made a big impact in the world back then. And if there's one thing, no matter what happens in the world, as we've seen now, my real decision and a real defining moment for me was we're always going to have to eat. And yeah, and since then, you know, so those were my early inspirations, were a number of people, but probably the young farmers that were at school with me, the farmers that I met and their families. And, you know, it was an area that I worked in and studied in and met more and more of them, from South Africa to United States to Israel, Europe, the Mediterranean. And farmers have never ceased to inspire and impress me. And, you know, our entire customer base, and that's who we serve, are farmers, and they continue to inspire me. And that's why we have a business. You know, we're of service to that industry, and it's fantastic to be part of it.
Now, Mark, you studied agriculture extensively, from college to the South African Sugar Association, University of Minnesota, and WITS, and even the IMM. What is your best memory from your studies?
Yeah, it's a great question. That, you know, no matter what your passion is, you've still got to pursue it. You've got to put the hours in, and you've got to understand it. So probably my greatest take out of my studies, you know, I struggled with chemistry at school. When I got to college, understanding the application of chemistry came so easily because I understood why. It suddenly was particularly relevant. So, you know, my greatest take out of studies was, you know, whether it was chemistry, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, veterinary science. I loved agronomy, horticulture. You know, understanding why and having knowledge that can be applied, I think is a privilege. I think it's a yearning. I could always see and feel the practical application of that knowledge I was gathering. But even then, a turning point in my career and studying was when I was working as a farm manager. I went back to study again at WITS and IMM and others, because it wasn't just the technical knowledge that we need, but it was also the ancillary knowledge around that. So I realized, wow, I know a lot about agronomy, but there's certainly a lot to learn about business and marketing and communication and industrial relations. So I think education never ends. I hope it doesn't, not for me and not for anyone else. I think as our needs change and as our careers change, as our influence changes over time, so we need to acquire different knowledge. But for me, while I thought I was a specialist and I'd finished studying and ticked all the boxes and thought, well, I'm ready to take on the world, I realized that was just the beginning. And yeah, and until today, I continue to learn. I probably learn now more than I ever learned 20 to 30 years ago.
And Mark, I believe you started your career in marketing and new business development and strategy. Is that right?
Absolutely, Nick. I was farming. There was a significant drought, and it dawned upon me that, you know, growing stuff's actually quite easy. You know, and the problem with agriculture was, do you sell what you grow, or a profoundly different approach, do you organize yourself to grow what sells? And that's very much a marketing or a supply and demand driven appreciation. And I think what changed my working career and got me out of farming and into marketing was a fascination and appreciation for supply and demand. You know, whether it's soap, whether it's condiments, whether it's ingredients, whether it's agricultural commodities or motor vehicles, it's all about supply and demand, and it's not what you have, it's what there's a demand for. And for me, that's guided my career back in agriculture and pulled me back into agriculture. So I think, to your earlier question, you need a technical knowledge of whatever you're doing. I think persistence pays off, and certainly sweat counts a lot. But having knowledge and having technical insight definitely helps. For me, a big game changer, and continues to be through to today, is the marketing background and a marketing knowledge and products. What do people want? How are things changing? What are people going to want in the future and not necessarily now? How do you anticipate and adjust to meet that demand as it comes about? And it's a particular area that I enjoy, and it leads many of our business decisions and how we work with customers and who the customers are that we align with and choose to work with.
Now, Mark, looking at your career, it seems as if innovation had a major role to play. Can you tell us a little bit about the role of innovation in your career?
Yeah, you know, for me, innovation is around being competitive. People are changing and demand is changing all the time. I think where agriculture and other industries and production manufacturing fail is what got us here is certainly not what's going to get us there. So I think an interest, at least, if there's a skill and ability that comes with it, to foresee change. And how does this evolve? How do eating habits change? How do supply chains change? How does growing and farming technology change? And how can we adopt that, innovate, understand it, and use it to our advantage? I think innovation is how we compete in a market. There's many people who do what we do, but we continuously question and try and dissect and understand, how can we do it better? How can we do it simpler, better, faster? And the fact that we take the time, the fact that we apply our mind to it, works. And whether that's on the factory floor, in our warehouses, in producing 1 million trees a year, or the service offering that goes to our customer on the back end of a fantastic product that's backed up by great service, I believe there's always room for innovation. I believe there's always room for improvement. And it's certainly a culture within our organization. And it's certainly been an element of my working career across different continents and completely different products. But yeah, for me, innovation is the driver. And innovation is the ability to change the offering that supply continues to meet demand as it changes.
And Mark, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point, or maybe a number of turning points?
Yeah, a number. For me, the biggest one was, first of all, it's easy to grow things, but you've got to grow what sells. So you sell what you grow, or you grow it to what sells. That for me was major. So when I went back to business school and kind of that was a light that really came on. So then that way you chase demand, and that way you chase innovation, that way you chase differentiation. But more than that, in doing that, and wow, it's such an interesting time having this discussion with you now, because we're living it out at the moment. There was always going to be a challenge, but until it became tangible, we were never really going to appreciate it. But a major part for me was years ago working in the United States, you know, big agriculture, big farming, big what we call industrial farming, and realizing, hang on. And then I worked in places like Israel, and I worked in Africa, Angola, West Africa a lot, Sierra Leone after the war. And I realized, unless we all change and find a way to contribute to a global transition to sustainable food and agriculture. This is not going to work. This is just not going to work. We're destroying it quicker than we're able to get the benefit out of it. And so, yeah, it probably the big turning point for me was after working in big agri with big multinationals for many, many years, building new projects in a place like Sierra Leone, and realizing how humble people are, and how if we don't take everybody with us, if we don't change and make this all sustainable, it wasn't going to work out. And that changed a lot of decisions in my career, changed a lot about what I chose to do, and brought me to where I am with my team today.
So Mark, what is driving you today?
Exactly what we see around us. You know, I think we're at the forefront internationally and certainly in South Africa, in working with some of the best farmers in the world. I think we're using some of the best genetics in the world to grow amazing trees, macadamias, avocados, and a lot of other crops to follow, all of which go into healthy foods, healthy eating, and fill up that space of sustainable, healthy living. I love that. I love being a part of the exciting changes that we see around us. I love being a part of, as we see infotech and biotech become more and more of agriculture. This is not about driving a tractor in the sun on a hot afternoon. You know, this is about taking world-leading technology and combining it together in the ability to grow food. What drives me now is farm up, not out. You know, how do we farm better, not bigger? How do we take biotech and genetics and infotech and big data and information, put that together to farm better? And you know, the more we apply our mind to it, the more we see other people do it, the more we roll it into own operations, the more we see the tremendous ability to achieve results there. And that's what drives us. It's exciting. We have farmers, you know, we're less worried about being competitive and competing with colleagues and people that we share this industry with. It's an obsession with getting our farmers to farm better, to produce a better product, to put it onto a market that people want. And you know, if our farmers are successful, if there's demand for their product, that there's certainly a strong place for us in this industry, and that's how we unpack it, and that's what we focus on every day that we're on the shop floor.
Now, Mark, looking into the future, how do you see manufacturing in South Africa change in the next years to come?
Yeah, well, we're certainly in the area of agriculture and farming, and in this case, nurseries, but it's a manufacturing process. We probably have about 100 processes that combine by the time we deliver a tree to our farmer. And then there are additional processes that extend from there to make sure that that tree performs well. And those become more of the human and communication element. But what's changed until now? Demand has changed, requirements and technology to be competitive at a farming level, whether it's certifications and standards and responsible farming and transparency. But certainly the United Nations sustainability goals, while years ago it was a distant dream that was dreamt up in somewhere in Europe, we see it affect our world every day. We see it affect every process that runs through our business. Is it sustainable? Does it comply with the sustainability goals? Have we addressed it correctly? Can we do better at it? And that's from the people we employ, to skills development, to traceability, to genetics, to technology, to rural development, to sustainable farming and healthy eating. So, you know, in summary, we have more certifications now than we ever imagined. We thought certifications were a compliance process that one would work with to get the certification. We see it as an inherent part of our operating procedures now for a number of years. We see it as a continuous, as a culture and a process that leads a culture of continuous improvement. And how do I see it changing in South Africa? I think the level that we're operating at, I think the challenges and crises that we've been through in South Africa, and the decisions our government leadership and that our people are taking, and decisions that I think our society wants, we will emerge as leaders in agriculture again. I think it's very exciting times for us. I think there's so much opportunity for us in manufacturing and in agriculture, and the role of manufacturing within agriculture. And it's led by global standards, and we have the ability, without a shadow of a doubt, to be world leaders. and to match or exceed global expectations in our ability to produce, prepare, and deliver healthy foods, healthy crops, and really innovative and exciting agriculture. And it's really the principles of manufacturing that are being applied there. And it's great to see the results.
And Mark, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders in manufacturing?
Yeah, manufacturing is a system. And no matter what technology we have, and we work with some of the world's greatest brands and companies from Silicon Valley technology to leading genetics, and we combine that in amazing systems and ERPs and manufacturing processes. But there are always people involved. There's always a customer. Without customers, there's no demand. There's always a customer, and there's always someone that's running the system, managing the system, and making it happen. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned from manufacturing and where we are is why. The systems are there, the technology is there, but it's your ability and our ability to tie it together with why. Why is it important, and how does it create a better product? Why does the customer need this technology to be in place? Why does the person who's operating and working with and applying the technology need to understand it? Why are we using it? What are the outcomes? And I think addressing the why always precedes the how, and then it precedes the who. And if we know that, we tend to get our people right, we get our systems right, and we understand why we're doing them. And then we have the ability to own and innovate and take it forward. So for me, the why and the overlap with people, none of this works unless we have the ability to engage with our people and we understand why we're doing it. And if it's driven, I believe the why is a better product. I believe the why is integrity. I believe the why is competitiveness. With that comes profit. With that comes sustainability. With that comes continuity. But understanding why, the focus is on the customer. The other focus is on our people. How do they play a role in it? And are they involved? Are they committed? Do they understand? And then it works. Then technology works. Then manufacturing comes together. And then I think the magic comes alive.
Now, looking back over your career, Mark, what would you say were the biggest challenges you encountered in your career, and what are the challenges future leaders should expect in their manufacturing career?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing, my biggest challenge was people. How do you translate vision to action? And I think that drives a lot of what I just mentioned to you now is the why. But yeah, I think that comes with age, it comes with experience, it comes with mistakes. But it starts with people and even vision. Where we have no vision, people perish. And I think a vision is easy to write, but until we really believe and have a vision that we can live, it doesn't really, the magic's not there. That vision, if we can achieve that, translates through to people. And if we have the ability to take it through to people, then it really becomes exponential. Then we can really multiply. Then we can really make a difference, and we can really make changes. So my biggest challenges have been taking vision and translating it into people. And that's purpose, passion, ownership, and empowerment. And those are big words. And I learned all those words 30 years ago when I studied and applied my mind. I might have done quite well in the exams. But until you get to a stage in a career where you understand the importance of that application, and you understand the importance of leadership is another massive learning. That people look to you for leadership, they look to you for inspiration, and it's our challenge and it's our task to provide that. So vision is driven by understanding why, by understanding how, by the ability to give people, share that vision with people, to empower those people, and give people responsibility to move forwards with that. And that for me has been the greatest challenge. What's going to happen in future? I think a lot more. People will expect accountability of leaders. We're seeing tremendous challenges in our world. People are asking harder questions, and whether it's a consumer product that arrives on the shelf, to understand the origin, the safety of that, and whether it's the conditions people work in and how we treat people. I believe what's going to change is far more accountability, far more transparency, and far more engagement. I think work will become more personal. I think we'll engage with people while we'll have good systems. I think the human element, for me anyway, is certainly going to be more alive in the years ahead it has been in the past. And I think that's a significant change.
And Mark, if you were to design a curriculum for future manufacturing leaders, what are some of the new skills you would want to factor in?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Matt. You know, I think the critical skills are, we'll find great engineers. We're surrounded by amazing technology. But the critical skills are shine a light on your own people. Make your people the hero of why and how and what you're doing. And it's your customer. You know, we can have amazing factories with zero defect and zero waste and incredibly efficient and certainly price competitive. But the relevance and shining a light on the customer, shining a light on who's going to be using and consuming and buying and relying and trusting that product, and shining a light on the people that may run the systems, that may manufacture, that may put the small pieces and components together, that ultimately becomes a product that you offer. I think for me, shining a light on that, you know, making the people that are involved in that process as the final receiver and the people involved in the steps, make them the champions and make them familiar with each other. And it's become an obsession for our business that our staff know who our growers and our farmers are, and vice versa. And that makes business personal, that makes it accountable, and that makes our systems and our manufacturing processes work better because people understand why. There's personal pride, there's personal ownership in it. And I think that makes a difference. And that would be my advice. The new skills are, you've got to have people skills in business. And if you don't, if it doesn't come naturally, you've got to really go out of your way to shine a light on your people, from the customer to the guys on the shop floor that are making it all happen, that there's a clear line of sight and the one appreciates and understands the other.
And Mark, when you speak to future leaders, what is it you tell them about social media? How should they handle social media and navigate social media to build their own leadership brand?
I find a lot of companies on social media talk about themselves, and that's good if it's in the context of the customer. But social media needs to, don't tell the customer how great you are, tell the customer how great they are, and then let them make their own decisions. And if that relationship works, they're going to come back to you. So social media for me is shine a light out. Shine a light out, you know, and even if it repeats what I said slightly earlier, social media should be the platform where you tie together why what you're doing or where you're explaining or illustrating or supporting why what you're doing is ultimately to fulfill a need and a demand out there. So it shines a light on the customer. It brings the people who are involved in the process to light and to life. And it's a place where in the practical day-to-day realities they may not meet, I believe that that's the convergence of who's involved in making it all happen. And it's not always about the business leaders. In fact, I think it's very seldom about the business leaders. And for me, the role of social media is to tie together the two extremes of the producers to the end users, that there's a familiarity, a trust, and a relationship that exists there. And I think that brings a bilateral accountability, one in loyalty from customers, because they have a relationship with the supplier and the company that they're getting their solutions or their product from, and vice versa. The people involved in those solutions know where the product ultimately ends, and pride and ownership is presented there. And that for me is the role of social media, is linking the two together and creating the relevance.
Now, Mark, looking at our current situation with COVID-19, how do you believe COVID-19 will change the local manufacturing landscape?
Yeah, we've certainly got to use technology and science to our full advantage. I think we've seen the vulnerability of inefficiency and the damage that has. Many businesses will not recover from this. What has COVID taught us? Liquidity in a business, cash flow in a business is critical. Proper prior planning is critical. And efficiency, you know, best technology, best information, the ability to integrate information quickly and make decisions, the ability to have accurate information available in real time. I found those businesses that responded most efficiently and probably turned the whole COVID-19 disaster into opportunities. And even if it's just social and communication opportunities and solutions as opposed to business and revenue, but I believe they're both. With those businesses that had liquidity, that had cash, that had information, and that were outward looking, not inward looking. And, you know, having good systems and good manufacturing principles, you know, looking out in terms of the greater scheme of things, whether it's sustainability goals, whether it's certification, you know, whether it's proper risk management procedures in a business, forces an inward, outward looking. And those businesses that had a good balance between inward and outward looking, I think are going to come through this okay. Those businesses that employed medium to long-term planning into their day-to-day operations, as opposed to, you know, enjoying a great market and a great opportunity while it presents itself, I think have got the vision, the depth, and the strength to see this through, and in all likelihood probably even grow and thrive in the environment that's coming to us now.
Now, Mark, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Yeah, look, I've got colleagues that have worked with me for 20 years, and we've worked together in different projects in different countries, and we've certainly shared a lot. But, you know, it's a simple phrase of always begin with the end in mind. What is it we're trying to achieve? And always believe that whatever you're going to start is truly going to make a global difference. And maybe that doesn't apply to everyone, but for my teams and the people that I've worked with has been, let's begin with the end in mind. Let's have the courage to dream big. And if we're going to do it, let's be among the world's best at what we do. And if that's the outset and if that's the buy-in, then we'll take those steps together. Then I'll employ you, or I'll give you the responsibility, or I'll put you in that position. But do you buy into that potential? And then most importantly, with some of the real champions that we have in our organization now and new organizations that we're busy building, is as humble as anyone is, I've found the greatest strength often comes out of the most humble people. And it's the ability over time to believe in oneself, that an individual can change the world, that an individual can make a difference. And some of my greatest champions started with us as minimum wage workers who knocked on the gate at times and said, "Hi, I'm desperate for a job. Have you got anything for me?" And we said, "Look, we've got a temporary position. This is what it is for now." And those people have risen to some of my best supervisors. And they believed in themselves. They believed in other people. And I think that's where I've seen the greatest success is those people in my organization, and where I've probably been able to impart that view of the world. Begin with the end in mind. Be courageous enough to think big. Be courageous enough and trust yourself enough that an individual and you can really, really, really make a difference. And then you will achieve nothing if not through other people. It will always be achieved through people. And that's where you have to achieve mastery. And the success stories and those that work with me that have achieved that have been brilliant at working with people. And it's great to see it. And I look forward to where their careers are going to take them from there. And I look forward to learning from them. And I look forward to what we're going to share together. And they certainly become long-term relationships, which I thrive on. And for me is a real mark of success is to see that those champions that we've built over time.
And Mark, are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend future leaders should study and learn from?
Yeah, look, I think I could run through lists of industrial champions that have achieved so much. But I'd love to take the opportunity to point out, you know, I think in our government and the crisis that we have in South Africa and the C-19 challenges that are presenting themselves every day, you know, I think our President Cyril Ramaphosa and the people that he's surrounded himself with now, you know, that they've come out from tremendous challenges and great frustration, where as a nation we were tremendously frustrated and lacked leadership and direction. You know, and a handful of strong people here have made decisions, taken leadership, run calculations, built packages, brought in laws, reshaped our lives in the most staggering manner in just a few weeks as this has come about. And I think it's truly, truly shown amazing leadership. And while that may not be in manufacturing itself, I think it shows strength of character, it shows ability to have vision, it shows the ability to think big. It shows the ability to have courage and to stand up. And no one can lead without courage. Leadership takes courage. It might be humble, it might be quiet, it might be conservative, and I think that's okay. I think some of the most humble leaders are quiet, conservative, and tremendously humble, but they still have courage. And I think we've all got courage built into us. And so a real example for future manufacturing leaders, you have to be bold. You have to look at people like Cyril Ramaphosa now and the government he's built, the people he's surrounded himself with, the decisions they've taken, how they've planned, how they've prepared, how they and / he has communicated, the manner in which he's communicated. And, he's taking 57 million people with him. We certainly may not all agree. We certainly may not all think these are ideal situations or decisions, but in the end, there's direction and there's leadership. And I think that's what manufacturing is about. Manufacturing is systems, manufacturing is processes, principles, whether it's engineering, whether it's technology, whether it's genetics, they're largely principles, but leadership pulls it all together. And I think when we get through this and we look back in hindsight, one way or another, however it turns out, we're going to see the tremendous leadership that has been presented by someone like Cyril Ramaphosa now, and more so when we reflect on other countries that have probably not done such a good job. We're going to see the qualities and character that have come through here.
And Mark, how can our listeners...
Those are the examples to study because it's current, it's real, it affects our world, it affects our life. Carry on.
Now, Mark, how can our listeners connect with you and where should they follow you?
On LinkedIn, Mark Hassenkamp is on LinkedIn, and RedSun is very much on LinkedIn. RedSun is on Facebook as well. And then our website. We have a website that's evolving quicker and more. And any questions, comments, observations are welcome there. That they're directed straight to me. My contact details are on the website and on the various media platforms like LinkedIn. We certainly run mentorship programs and coaching programs, and anyone's welcome to get hold of me. It will be an absolute pleasure to engage.
And last but not least, Mark, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own lives?
Believe in yourself and have courage. You may not imagine, but everyone of us is unique, and everyone has the ability to dent the universe, if you will, or to make a significant change. But even the quiet, unsung heroes amongst us are the people that bring about tremendous change. And as I said in the first question, have probably had the greatest influence on my career and my life. And many of those people are the people that I work with on the shop floor every day. Respect people, honor people. Everyone has a story to tell, but believe in yourself, be bold, and have courage. In the end, that's what ties it together, and people need leadership and people want leadership.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and the future of manufacturing. And reminding us that it is about shining our light on others. And yeah, thank you. This is unbelievable.
It's a pleasure, Nick. Thanks for the opportunity. It's always great to reflect, and I think much is learned from a discussion like this with you, and to Stuart as well. Thanks for the opportunity and the wonderful work we're doing with the Epicor team. We learn so much every day, and I thank you for your time as well, Nick. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.